Yeah, so that's kind of the idea of this talk, is I want to give you guys a lot of lessons learned, a lot of things that I think are just some of the most valuable things. If you're looking to get started, or if you're like in that mid-journey where you're in incident response, you're kind of looking to establish yourself as an expert. Even if you actually have a lot of experience in incident response, I think you might even have to learn some stuff today. But let me just give you a little background about myself. So I'm married. I have a beautiful wife. I actually have 6 kids, okay? That's not a typo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 of them are here, actually. So Anna Marie and Gabriel, they're CactusCon kids officially this year. As I mentioned, I have 3 donkeys. We have, a year and a half ago, I was so sort of tired of always being up to my eyeballs in technology, working all the time, that we bought a 16-acre property so I could be in the middle of nowhere, just unbothered and enjoy nature as much as possible. We got chickens and some animals and stuff like that, and we got donkeys. All right? I'll tell you really quickly why we got donkeys. I never knew I was going to need a donkey. Never in my life thought that a donkey would be a necessary thing. And you get out to a ranch, and I live in Texas. I live in Austin, the Austin area. And we have a lot of coyotes, okay? So we hear them every night howling. Donkeys, believe it or not, are the best livestock guardians. They take care of coyotes, right? They will destroy coyotes. They can kill hyenas. Go look it up on YouTube. You'll see them just taking these dudes out. And it's amazing because they're hilarious. Donkeys are super intelligent. They are very affectionate. They love humans. They're like big dogs. So they're not like horses. They actually want to be around you. They like affection. But when the time comes to protect their family and their livestock, they jump into action. They know exactly what to do. You know, they don't back down. So in a lot of ways, donkeys are kind of my spirit animal when it comes to cybersecurity. So I actually, cyberdonkey.net is my site, which, by the way, I almost forgot to mention. For anybody, especially in the back, okay, there's going to be some things. I'll zoom in, right, and I'm going to try not to, make you guys throw up by doing that too much. But I will try to zoom in. If you want, the slides are already up there, okay? So, in fact, this entire talk that was recorded today right now is already there. No, I'm kidding, it's not. The slides are already on the website, so cyberdonkey.net. If you go there, you can download the slides. You can go follow along with me. That way, if there's anything that you want to zoom in on, any small text or what have you, that I forget to zoom in on, you can do that along throughout the talk, all right? So I'm the director of cybersecurity at a company called Waypoint Analytical. I work with some really great people there. And just, great leadership, have a lot of love for the people I work with. I am also a certified SANS instructor, so I teach for the SANS Institute, Forensics 508, which is Advanced Threat Hunting and Incident Response. I also was formerly in the Air National Guard, the Texas Air National Guard, which, if you didn't know that, every state has an Air Force and an Army and stuff. So you have the active duty components that are national, and then you have the components that are state level that are run by the governors. So I joined the Air Force in Texas, and I was enlisted. That's where I got my start in cybersecurity, 2011 or something like that. Then I moved into the Coast Guard, all right? I didn't even know, you guys don't even know, if anybody's from Arizona, you don't even know about the Coast Guard, right? There's no water anywhere. So the Coast Guard, actually, I didn't know either in San Antonio, because there's also no water around there, okay? So the Coast Guard was a lot of fun because the Coast Guard has this, they have a life-saving mission, but they also have authority over all the ports and waterways and stuff like that. So you have a lot of ICS and SCADA type of mission. And so with the Coast Guard, I was helping to build the SOC and IR capabilities. In fact, I was the first named cyber protection team member of the Coast Guard, the CPT. The Coast Guard sent me to DHS for 2 years, and for 2 years at the end of my Coast Guard reign, I was with DHS, and all I did was threat hunting and incident response. So what used to be the US CERT team then was, at the weird time that I was there, the NKIC and Hunt and incident response team, or HURT, turned into now CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So many acronyms. All right, so anyway, right before it became CISA, all we did was we had this small deployable team for 2 years. We just go out to water utility, energy plants, and so on and so forth, doing threat hunting and incident response, and that was it. Then I moved on to a company called Recon InfoSec that I recently departed from, but was working with some fantastic people. If anybody's familiar with OpenSOC, OpenSOC is Recon InfoSec is responsible for OpenSOC at DEF CON. Anyway, so that's been my journey. Now I'm teaching and doing all kinds of stuff and having fun and coming to things like this to, again, help people in their journey. I also am I'm Catholic. I'm somebody who I have a great love for faith and philosophy and stuff, and so I actually even wrote a book on all that stuff. But dad jokes and parenting, okay, this is my reign. Having a lot of kids makes me better in cybersecurity, as you can imagine, right? Lots of chaos, lots of incidents, lots of threats I gotta hunt out. Anyway, so I'm a 90s kid. A lot of my references are late 90s, early 2000s, okay? So sorry, bear with me, Google it. You don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, as you can see, Boys to Cactus Men will tell you that it's so hard, okay, to get started in incident response. And the reason for that, man, it's so funny. Like 10, 15 years ago, that joke would have killed. It's hard because the reality is that this is a very complex environment, right? This is so much. You got to know, like an incident response, you just feel like you have to know everything about everything, Windows and Linux and Mac, and then there's networking, and there's the endpoint stuff, the endpoint forensics. There's so much out there. And I think the other part of it is that there's a lot of bad advice too, right? There's a lot of junk. There's a lot of tools. There's so many different tools. And there's a lot of people that tools and things that promise to kind of make everything easier. They hide certain things. Like there's a lot of people that get a bad start in incident response, and I think that's part of why. Even after years and years of doing it, there's a lot of people who feel like, I still don't know how to do it. I still don't feel like I can actually do this job, even though I've been hired as the incident response guy and I've been there for 3 or 4 years at this company. And I still don't know how to do it because I haven't had a major incident. If you did have a major incident, they might get rid of you, okay? If you have a major incident, that's the only way you get to learn how to actually do this stuff, and so that's the problem, right? So you have this weird kind of thing that, like, if you're a consultant, if you work for organizations like Mandiant and CrowdStrike and stuff, then you get to do incident response, and you're not going to get fired because you get paid to do that from the organization that's having the IR. But if you work for a company in a SOC or doing IR, they don't want you doing IR, right? Like, it's kind of a weird backwards thing. But the good news is that, like, while there's great training out there that's very expensive, there are tons of free resources now, like tons. When I started 15 years ago when I was trying to figure this stuff out, there's a lot of free stuff, but most of that was like malware, but now, like, there's so many free tools, there's so many free resource training, like it's wild, okay? So what I'm gonna do is try to condense a lot of this stuff into I'm probably talking fast because I'm like, there's so much to talk about. I'm like, hope I get through all of it, okay? So let me just hit you up with really quick the incident response process. If you've not seen this, it's something that SANS developed a long time ago. Sometimes it's called the PICRL process, preparation, identification, scoping, containment, eradication, recovery, lessons learned. We're going to stick with the first two, okay? The first two of this process are the most important for an incident responder, all right? This is where you either do the job and you have something to tell the execs, or you don't do the job because they forced you to get into eradication and recovery right away, right? That weird tension of, like, let's hurry up and get everything back online, let's fix it, let's whatever, is rides against the idea that, yeah, but I need to know how bad it is. If you think about this in terms of somebody gets hurt, like has an injury or car crash or something like that. Let's just say that they have a little bit of blood on their arm or a little cut or whatever. You bring them to the hospital and they say, let's just amputate the arm. Let's get this guy back on his way. We need to get him out in 30 minutes, you know what I mean? That wouldn't work at a hospital, right? Well, sometimes I know that probably does, that kind of weird thing does happen, but it wouldn't work. For whatever reason, that's something that we haven't gotten companies to understand yet, right? Like, we first need to understand how bad it is. If I don't know how bad it is, I don't know what to tell you about what to do about it, right? That's where we're going to live today. That's where most of the resources I'm going to give you are going to be centered around, is like just figuring out how bad it is. Because your job is going to be to figure out how bad it is fast, okay? That's if you are either very good at this job because you can effectively and efficiently quickly get to giving answers, maybe not the entire answer, but answers that are going to help them understand how bad it is, right? Because then again, like, now we need to start figuring out, well, at what point do we make decisions? A lot of that stuff happens before the incident, okay? So this is the preparation stuff. So the ability to identify and scope an incident happens before. You either have a security camera that when the police get called and somebody was killed or something happens, right? They get to the scene. They either have a security camera that lays it all out, that says, okay, let me look at the video. Okay, I can see 2 hours ago, guy got hit over the head, person was wearing a hoodie, ran off into the east direction. Like, either I have that stuff and I can start answering questions, or I got nothing because I didn't put it in place beforehand, right? So anyway, that's where we're going to live. Let me give you what my, not me, the Cyberdonkey's sanity check, all right? Now, this is my personal kind of sanity check. This works for beginners. This works for experts, okay? Anytime that you are doing any kind of SOC analysis, initial investigations, or you're working an IR or what have you, there are three things that I kind of lean on. The first one is, at any point, being able to answer the question, what do I know? Like, what do I really know? What am I confident about? Not what do I think, but what do I know, okay? What do I know, and what can I demonstrate with evidence that I know? The second thing is, what do I not know, right? Like, I need to know what I don't know. And again, I might think something, but if I don't know, then I need to really be able to define that as, this is something I don't know, all right? I know how they got in, I don't know how they moved around. Or I know that they were here at some point, but I don't know what they were doing before that. I don't know how they got in, whatever it is, right? You lay out these questions, and then the next thing is like, so what I don't know is a set of questions, all right? Your effectiveness in incident response is the ability to define narrow questions. Either I have a good question that I can answer like quickly, or I have a very vague question that's going to get me spinning my wheels for a very long time. I'll give you an example. So if my question is something like, do I have an admin logging on yesterday, externally, or let's say, do I have anybody leveraging RDP from any system to this system at any point yesterday from 4 to 6 p.m. or something like that, okay? That's a question I can answer by going and looking at something very specific. I can answer that question, right? Did something bad happen last week? That's a really hard question. That's a bad question to try to, you're going to spin your wheels, right? Like there's tons of logs. I don't know what I'm looking for. How do I know if I found it? So I need to know what I don't know, but then I'm going to develop some questions to help me figure out what it is that is going to fill that gap. And that's that third thing, okay? Is developing questions that will make my next part of the journey fruitful, all right? So what I don't know might be, what commands they ran. Now that third question, what do I need in order to be able to fill a gap or to answer the questions of the things that I don't know? It might be that I don't have the right visibility, okay? Maybe I don't have command line auditing. So when I'm trying to answer things for executives, this is the stuff that's going to help me to make sense of it, okay? Here's what I know. I know that they definitely executed something, some malware yesterday at 6 p.m., so on and so forth, okay? What I don't know is, was this the first system in the whole chain of events? What I don't know is how they got to executing that or whatever it is, right? Because what I'm missing is command line auditing. You see what I'm saying? Like that will always that'll always anchor you in a place of sort of comfort and sustainability. As soon as I get away from that and I'm just looking for bad stuff, I'm clicking around, like let me go look for execution stuff, let me go look at event logs, let me go look at this, like you're never gonna find anything unless you know very specifically what you're looking for, okay? So again, you think of it like a detective has to have a string that they're always pulling on. Okay, so that brings me to the next thing, which is DMXDR, all right? Just making a surprise. Yeah, all right, that's it. I can always tell who the folks are that are, let's say, over 25 or so by the laughs, the moderate laughs in the audience. So DMXDR, where my log's at, a very famous song from DMXDR, right? This is the thing that's like, okay, well, I can be effective if I have the right type of stuff, all right? The problem is that Windows doesn't come with very good security event logs, okay? Or security logs, let's just say. Windows doesn't really have that built in, which kind of sucks because a lot of times for consultants, you're coming into organizations where they don't have anything. They didn't put anything in place beforehand, right? So there's no security camera, and when you come into a crime scene, there's no security camera, you're resorting to now clunky forensics. No security camera means I got to take blood samples and DNA samples and hair follicles, like I'm crawling on the ground looking for a little piece of hair or something like that. Then I got to send that stuff off to the lab. It's going to take me 2 or 3 weeks or 6 weeks to get anything back, to get any answers. And even then, I'm making assumptions. That person was there I don't know if they were there during the crime scene, or during the crime. I don't know if they were the one that committed the crime. I just know that they were probably there at some point, right? So like, this becomes the rub, is that, you know, part of it is like you need to know how to do some clunky forensics, but then you need to evangelize and figure out how to, especially at your own organization, get the stuff in there that's going to help you to answer those questions, you know, quickly. MITRE ATT&CK, you guys are probably all very familiar with MITRE ATT&CK. This is something that can help you to figure out what do I have visibility over and what do I not have visibility over. So you can drive into any of these things and say, all right, you know, like persistence, execution, lateral movement, or what have you. What are the techniques that are out there? MITRE ATT&CK goes all over the place, right? Like who's doing these things? You know, is it Deep Panda? Is it Black Energy? So on and so forth. What tools are they using? WMI, PowerShell, so on and so forth. But the reality is that for what we're talking about is I need to know what here do I have visibility, like could I even detect something? Again, I go to that command line auditing thing. A lot of people don't have command line auditing in their organization. So if you go to a technique and it says, you know, part of the detection, because MITRE will also tell you, like, here's some detection techniques. Part of the detection techniques is, you know, these commands that might get run. Well, if I don't have command line auditing, I can't hunt for those things. You know what I mean? So you can go to MITRE to look for ideas for things that you may or may not have visibility over. Microsoft actually has really gotten so much better in documentation and just security, period, in all kinds of different ways. But the Microsoft website actually now has a list of all the event logs, and even it'll tell you what the event log is for. It'll also tell you if it's enabled or, you know, not enabled by default. Again, you'll find out that sucks that there's a lot of things that are not enabled by default that if they were, it would be so much more helpful. But then one of the things that it tells you is why you might actually want to enable this or include it or look for it. Like, does it have a security nexus or not, right? Like, it might be like, nah, there's nothing really known that, you know, is useful for security. But if it is, it'll tell you. So here's an example of something that very famous, most people know about, 4624s. Those are successful logons. So it'll tell you, you know, breakdown of what that looks like. Then, you know, there's logon types. I know somebody logged on successfully. How do they log on? They use RDP. They log on over, you know, network, SMB. Anyway, so these are really good resources. But another really good one is the SANS Hunt Evil poster. So this is one where so like, man, there's so many good things going on here. But one of the things is on the right-hand side, it shows you how to track lateral movement for mostly living off the land techniques. Okay, so if you dig into that. You look at lateral movement artifacts that are on the source and on the destination systems when RDP is used for lateral movement, for example. Will include things like 4624s, of course, you know, successful logon of a particular type. A type 10 is RDP. Then you have other actually custom event logs. You have shimcache and prefetch, which we'll talk about in a second. Things that'll show up. The question is, again, do I have visibility over this stuff? Do I know what this is? Do I know how to go grab it? Okay. Do I know the particulars, the nuances of these artifacts like shimcache? Do I know that shimcache only writes to disk? There's a shimcache on disk. There's one in memory. It only writes to the one on disk on a shutdown or a restart. So if I'm looking at shimcache and I'm only searching over disk, but I'm looking at a server that hasn't been restarted in 2 or 4 months, I'm missing some stuff, right? Like I need to know that kind of stuff. And so what I can do is I can go to these things, these resources, and look for ideas, right? What is shimcache? What is, you know, what are the logon types of 4624s? Like, do I know how to go grab these? Do I have tools that would help me to because you can't just, some of these you can't just go grab, like you can't go grab a prefetch file and just start looking at it. You need tools to do that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then again, you know, there's services, there's WMI, there's PowerShell logs, all of these things. Like, this poster will introduce you to a ton of valuable things. If you don't know they exist, get familiar with them, right? Whoops. Okay, so, oh, by the way, the slides that are already on the website, on cyberdonkey.net, every single thing that I show up here is a link to the resources as well. So, like, these pictures are also linked to the poster, so you can go grab the poster. This is linked to an article so that you can go and check out, like, if I don't have PowerShell logging on, and it's horrible, right? That there's a lot of PowerShell logging that's not enabled by default in Windows. wild. It just is what it is, okay? So if you have not enabled these, you need to go, like, you're going to want PowerShell logs, okay? You're going to want these. You're going to need them. You got to enable them before you have an incident. Okay, so here's a great article that will kind of walk you through what's available out there and how to enable them. And this is an example of something that PowerShell has called transcript logs. PowerShell transcript logs are phenomenal. PowerShell transcript logs will show you, kind of like if you're familiar with Linux, standard in, standard out, it'll show you what the user typed into a PowerShell terminal, and it's based on the user, okay? It tracks these as text files for every user. It'll create a text file with what the user typed in, but also the output that they got back. So what they saw. If they screwed something up and they made a mistake and they got an error, you'll see the error. If they ran something and the executable gives feedback to say like, hey, malware successfully implanted, you'll see that in the PowerShell transcript, right? As long as they're using PowerShell. So here's an example of a lot of the stuff before this is just meta information. So the transcript started. By the way, if you want to try this, test it out on your own system, open up PowerShell, type start-transcript, and then do whatever you want. It'll actually tell you where it's saving that file to, and then you can go look at the file. It's a great way to just kind of play around and get used to it. Okay, so I did a couple of things. I don't know what I did. I don't remember exactly, but I did a few things that caused an error. Here you can see that it actually is telling you that, like, oh, okay, I don't think I did this on purpose. I think I was actually, and then I was like, I'll capture it because, cool, it's an error. I tried to run a tool out of the directory that it was not in. There was an error. And then eventually I ran it, and it successfully runs at the bottom, and you can see that again, like, this is the cool feedback. Like, there's really not many places where you get the back and forth interactions of an attacker, okay? This is the super, super valuable thing. Dang, there's no way that we're already at 3:54. I'm ridiculous. I swear I was talking like super fast. I think too many jokes. Okay, so the red poster from SANS is also one that will introduce you to a lot of artifacts that are used in forensics. Things like shim cache, like I mentioned before, and prefetch. Shell bags that shows you what folders people open. Prefetch is one of those. This is one of the best artifacts normally when you don't have it elsewhere. That will show you when something is executed, a prefetch file for the thing that gets executed is actually recorded. All right. So this is great for evidence of execution. And this is just an example of opening, using a tool called PE command, written by a guy named Eric Zimmerman. It's a free tool, by the way. And I'm looking at the prefetch for PowerShell. So this will show me a lot of the things that PowerShell loaded, where it was executed from. So if I'm dealing with malware, this will tell me, and malware's gone. If I still have the prefetch file, this will tell me where the thing was executed from. It'll also give me, what DLLs and stuff were loaded. It's all kinds of really valuable stuff, again, during an IR. The reality is that sysmon is, if you can implement sysmon, a much, much better option for things like evidence of execution and all kinds of things, actually, rather. Sysmon is a Microsoft tool, okay? Signed by Microsoft, developed by Microsoft guys, but it doesn't come with Microsoft, or it doesn't come with Windows, right? Sucks. You got to go download it. You have to install it. But it does all kinds of things like logging process creation. So every time a thing is executed, logged. Every time a file is created, logged. It also logs deleted files now. It logs DLL injection or network connections, and so from a process. So opening up a socket, process opens a connection, goes out to the internet, or receives a connection, incoming. Now like that's so valuable, okay? That's so valuable to know what program, what process is actually responsible for that network connection. I'm not talking about stuff at the perimeter. I'm not talking about firewall. I'm talking about at the endpoint on the system, notepad.exe. I can see it opening a connection, all right, going out. Right? That's not good. Probably not good, right, unless somebody's doing something just goofy. So sysmon has its own event IDs. It's its own custom event log that has, again, a whole host of really, really valuable artifacts. And the problem with sysmon, unfortunately, is that it could be a beast. If you let it, just go Super Saiyan, it could destroy the whole, enterprise. All right, I'm kidding. No, it's a lot to configure, manage, and if you let's say do something wrong, you can have it overload some systems, and it could end up not being good. So this is where you're like, you got to partner with an engineer, because like I might not have the let's say qualities and capabilities to set up, maintain, configure, and whatever. I just know how to use it. This is where you got to be careful. So I'm just giving you guys a little bit of caution there. Don't go to an enterprise environment in your production environment and just start rolling out Sysmon and like getting everything. Instead, I got some really good resources for you. A guy named Carlos, who has a whole list of videos on how to kind of get this set up, how to manage it, and do that in a way that's, again, appropriate and effective. Also, a guy named Olaf Hartong, who makes a modular Sysmon config. These are great places to start, okay? These are great places to start small and then eventually go from there. And then here's another totally different, so somebody who has a little bit more expertise. JONMON is a tool that allows you to kind of play with creating your own telemetry. It's like creating your own Sysmon in a sense, all right? I'm going to roll through a couple of these because I'm out of time here in a couple of minutes. So the last thing you need is analysis, okay? You just need one, so you need analysis. You know what I'm saying? All right, analysis. All right, to analyze all of these things, there's a whole host of phenomenal resources and tools. This is a list of event logs that have just nothing but attacks, okay? So part of the problem with us who live in an area where we live in an organization where we don't get attacked all the time, we don't get to see what it looks like, we don't know what it really looks like. This is just a whole ton of event logs that have a bunch of attacks in them, so you can see exactly what it might look like in an event log let's say again for persistence or credential dumping, that's not a word, it could be, credential dumping and so on and so forth, right? It's a great resource. Here's an article, I'm gonna brush through these, here's an article that actually uses those to show you how to kind of do a little threat hunting, leveraging that this resource that I just mentioned here a second ago. Eric Zimmerman has a whole host of free tools for looking through prefetch or parsing through prefetch for event log. If you want a free tool that will pull event logs, extract out event logs, and put them into a format that allows you to kind of just play with them in a much more easy format, like Event Viewer, horrible, okay? EVTX eCommand is a great example of that. So this is just an example of me leveraging EVTX eCommand to process event logs, an event log, and then it puts it into a CSV format. Then I can use a tool also created by Eric Zimmerman called Timeline Explorer to pull open that event log in a CSV format, okay? And at first it's going to look a little bit odd because it's kind of just all sort of out there. But it allows me to, I can group on columns in this tool, and I can start to kind of pull out different sections to show that, like, all right, so for example, here I have process creation event, okay? So looking at, I don't know why I highlighted that, process creation event for Internet Explorer, or iexplorer.exe, okay? The command line for that is this right here, all right? So this is how it was started, which is not really all that special. But the parent of that is command.exe, right? I'm sorry, I'm backwards here. So command.exe is the executable. The parent process of command.exe is Internet Explorer. That's weird, okay? That's very weird. Internet Explorer spawning command line, command.exe. That's odd, right? Like, and the only way that I could sort of, or the way that I made this all come together was just kind of pulling, grouping by the command line, or sorry, the executable name, and then the parent process name and the parent command line, and like suddenly it's like, oh, well, duh, that doesn't look right. You know what I mean? Like, this shouldn't come from that. Okay, so I know I'm over time. Give me 2 minutes and I'm just gonna breeze through. This is just more of the same. All right, a couple of tools I'm gonna hit in rapid succession. Hayabusa, a tool that automates a lot of the threat hunting through event logs, okay? Phenomenal tool. A couple other tools I heard about recently that I haven't had a chance to play with.
You have until 4:20.
What the heck? Right, dang, man. Dude, thank you, somebody. You know what, it's because I was like, there's no way, dude. Like, it's because I thought I thought the thing started at 3 and ended at 4. Man, dude, now we got time to play. The jokes are coming now. Dude, I appreciate that so much. Anyway, it's probably good that I did that, though, because honestly, I mess around a lot. So it might have actually been in my head that I was like, oh, you got to be done by 4, so that I would put myself into this, like, all right, man, don't mess around. Actually, give these people what they want. All right. But now that I know what you want. You want the jokes because you're like, relax, dude. You don't have to go so fast. Okay, I got it. Okay, so Hayabusa. All right, so well then, yeah. To go back here really quickly, the goal here is that like event logs are something that everybody hates. Like if you're in a, by the way, I'm like thinking like these. I was wondering why the organizers didn't give me like a 15-minute, 10-minute, and 5-minute thing, and now I'm just realizing like I'm such a dummy. So anyway, event logs. A lot of people look at event logs and they're like, man, like, yeah, you know, this is child's play, and like, yeah, event logs suck, right? The reality is that most people think that because you don't know what the goal that is in event logs. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it's because a lot of the event logs that are super valuable are not enabled by default. Right? It sucks, but it's true. Like there are event logs, okay? There's process creation event logs built into Windows. You can just turn it on. You don't have to install sysmon for this. You can turn on process tracking. In the security event log, it will track every time a program is started, okay? It will tell you that. It'll tell you the command line that it was started with. It'll tell you the parent process that is responsible for that. So we just looked at right now, Internet Explorer launching command.exe. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't look good or whatever, right? That's something that you could have, like, you don't have to go and buy anything, do anything fancy. You just turn on process tracking, okay? So there's that. There's also 5140s for share mapping. You know what I mean? Like stuff that, for lateral movement, duh, like this is exactly what I want, right? The attacker is like, you know, setting up a share, or rather mapping an admin share, moving malware over somewhere, executing that remotely, getting onto that system, like setting up a web shop. Like, there are so many things that I would be missing just not knowing that they're available to me and ignoring event logs, right? Okay, so I need to get really aware. Okay, yeah, thanks. 15 minutes now, yeah. So let me hurry up. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so there's so many things that in event logs would be wildly valuable to me. I don't know about them. They're not enabled by default, and so what I would recommend is that you go and you do a little searching on what is available and what's normal, okay? Forget for just a moment about trying to watch red teamers attack and like, reading blog posts about how they pivoted and did this and, what commands they executed or whatever. What is available naturally in a Windows environment, okay? Like, what do I have? What event logs do I have, okay? What event logs are available to enable that I don't have enabled? What would that provide me? Share mapping, process tracking, creation of files. Like, what are things that I don't even know exist? The log journal that tracks every thing that the volume, or rather the file system, is doing. New files, created files, renaming. Did you know that there's something that tracks rename events? Okay, there's a journal that tracks when a file is renamed. All right. Okay, if I don't know that those things exist, I can't make use of them. If I know that they exist, then I can make sure that they're either enabled or there's capacity to retain those things, or that they're being forwarded off somewhere, or whatever it is. Then I can use these tools to go and analyze them. Then I can, once I understand what's out there, what I can look for, then I can automate it. Okay. The next thing would be automating through things like Hayabusa. Okay. So I'm glad that you hit me right here, because these are some really, really phenomenal tools that I don't want to breeze through. Hayabusa being one where this is using something called Sigma. So Sigma signatures. Okay, if you're not familiar with that, this is like an open source community of people basically writing signatures for you, helping you to find badness. Okay, so then there's tools like Hayabusa that will ingest those, or already have them. You can write your own. You can customize it. And then you breeze through event logs and just do automated threat hunting, catching things like looking for lateral movement, looking for potentially persistence or weird user behavior and stuff like that. Okay, Hayabusa is one of the best ones out there for that kind of thing. I've not played with these, but within the last month or two, I saw somebody talking about they released something called Threat Seeker, which essentially does the same thing. They all kind of do it in a different way, so there might be different values there. And then Chainsaw is another one that does that as well. Okay, so these are great These are great ways for, at the beginning stages, for you to run them and, one, maybe quickly find something that you might not have found otherwise, or two, figure out what it's looking for, all right? How do you find out how to hunt? Well, you look at what the tools are doing, what they're looking for, what they would call evil, potentially, and then you go and figure out, like, how do I go do that manually, all right? I'm a fan of that, the manual, scrappy method or whatever. Okay. Then there's a tool called Echo Trail that would be useful for you. Like, I don't even know if this is a normal Windows binary. Okay, well, how would you know that? There are some resources out there like Echo Trail. Echo Trail used to provide a lot more free. It used to be a lot more free. Now, only like a line of it is free, which is essentially, I can go and look at things that are normal Windows binaries that are doing weird things, and figure out, like, are they normal, okay? SVC host, bits admin, certutil, all these Windows binaries that might be abused, and it could be malware, but it's malware that's named after, it's trying to masquerade and hide as a Windows binary, right? It's SVC host, it's named SVC host, but it's not the real SVC host. Well, how would I know if it's the real one or not, okay? Again, it's that ability to know what is normal, what's it supposed to look like. Echo Trail is a great resource for saying, okay, it's supposed to be running out of System 32. It's supposed to, it's either supposed to be connecting and opening, listening on a port or not, or what have you. It has a parent process of services, for example. So if SVC host has a parent process of command.exe, that might be the thing that tells me that something's wrong here, right? So knowing what's normal and then knowing the abnormal is where you're going to become effective, right? Like, I can tell when my kids are not feeling good or when something's wrong with them, or they're upset or whatever, because I know what they normally look like, okay? I know their normal facial expressions. I know what they normally sound like when they talk. I know how they normally respond to me when I ask a question. When I see something that deviates from that, that's how I know something's wrong. I might not know what's wrong yet, but that's how I know when something is wrong, and I got to dig in a little further. Yeah?
I'm not an IR guy, so this might be a dumb question.
No, go ahead.
If you can hash the application, why wouldn't you just do that as opposed to
Question is, if you can hash the application and then do a quick search on VirusTotal or whatever, why wouldn't you do that? Well, you could, so you could do that. Few things. One, it's very easy to change a hash. So, like, you might not find anything, and that might, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know, right? Like, I don't know that this is a core Windows binary. I don't know that this is something that should be a Windows binary. So if I hash it and find nothing, then I might just be like, okay, well, there's probably nothing. That also could be that it's malware that just hasn't been uploaded yet, right? The other reason is because I can't. It's hard for me to. That's a intensive process too, right? Like taking hashes and like running hashes for every single thing. But I can go and I can do a sweep across everything that's running, let's say that is in the System32 folder or not in the System32 folder or whatever, and look for markers of things. Like I can do, for example, a sweep across 5,000 systems looking for SVC host, not in System32. I'm not going to take hashes of 5,000 different SVC hosts and try to upload every single one of those. You know what I mean? So that's a good question though. All right, so anyway, so all of this is going to tell me, like, again, the parent process that should come up and the path that I should see it. I need to become very familiar with what is normal, right? I need to know my kids before I end up, figuring out if something's wrong. Lolbass is another really cool project that will categorize all of the Windows binaries that are very commonly abused for living off the land. So these are where it's like, it's not malware, it's actually the Windows binary that's being abused by a malicious actor. And so how they're abused, which ones are commonly abused, is all categorized in here. Phenomenal resource. So again, going back to bits admin, for example, this is, that, and then also the detection signatures and stuff to help you actually look for this kind of stuff. Same thing, living off the land drivers. Same thing, just, a bunch of vulnerable drivers that are often used, things to look for if you are a defender. Going back to the Hunt Evil poster, the Hunt Evil poster on the left-hand side has a bunch of common Windows, some of the core Windows binaries, CSRSS, SMSS, SVCOS, and all that kind of stuff. And it'll tell you for each one of those, what's the parent process expected, how many instances should you have, where should it be running from, what kind of command line arguments should you expect. Again, know the normal stuff. Then you can see where the deviations occur. But more power is always obviously the answer, and I know that because one of my favorite shows, Okay, it was tool time. And all right, so anyway, yeah. Oh, this is a ninja donkey, all right, riding a velociraptor hunting gigantic spiders. Okay, and that's because one of my favorite tools is called Velociraptor. Velociraptor is an open source tool that is so powerful, it can do so much, all right? We just talked about, like, the thing I just said, like, I can look for the instances of SVC host running on 5,000 systems across my environment, and then say, like, show me any of them that are not running out of the path I expect them to run out of, you know, system 32, for example. So it can do that. It can pull artifacts. It can run binaries. I can go get a whole triage collection of artifacts. I can interact with live memory. Velociraptor is phenomenal. So here's an example of me running PS list in Velociraptor, just listing out processes. I can do that for a single system. I can do that for 5,000 systems if I want to do that. I can also run PS tree, where I can look at parent and child relationships for processes. And if you want to get more familiar with that, here's another resource for you from a guy that's a very good long-term friend of mine, Eric Capuano. Super smart, has a whole video on just doing instant response with Velociraptor. But power is not the only thing I need. I need speed, okay? So CAPE is another tool that is a tool that will go get me all the greatest hits of forensics, okay? It'll triage, or rather, it will get a triage set of artifacts for me, okay? So if I think that I have a compromised system, I run CAPE against that compromised system. Go get me all the things that I want to look at that'll help me answer questions fast. I don't want a forensic disk image, right? Like, get me the blood samples and the hair follicles and all just that stuff, right? Cut me out a piece of the carpet. I don't want the whole house. I just need the things that are going to help me start answering questions fast. So CAPE will get me all of those artifacts, and then Plazo, along the timeline, will create a timeline from those artifacts and just put it all in all of the artifacts that I'm going to use for forensics into a timeline, so that I can look for, like, point by point, right, time by time, step by step, type of analysis. TimeSketch is another open source tool that will allow you to ingest the timeline and make a more efficient process of bringing in a bunch of different timelines. 15 different systems. I can bring that all into TimeSketch, for example, for free, and then have, things that I just ultimately can browse through, tag, and I can make my own miniature timeline. Okay, so here's another great talk from again, Eric Capuano, Whitney Champion, two great friends of mine who I used to work with at Recon InfoSec, called Breaches Be Crazy. And so anyway, this is all about kind of making that process a lot more efficient by bringing in a bunch of different timelines and some of the back end things that you need to kind of engineer to do that right. Then, of course, there are also open source and free things that can help you to get trained up in doing all of this stuff in a way that's going to not lose everything that you just found, right? So, in other words, case management. So, the Hive is an open source project that allows you to implement a case management system to take notes, to correlate events and alerts and cases and stuff like that, right? So, like, I can now make sense of a case that I'm working right now because it has a lot of things that are in common with a case I worked 6 months ago. I don't remember that case, right? I don't remember the findings and all that stuff. But if I did my job right and I took notes and I pulled all that data out and whatnot, then this will do that for me automatically, right? It'll call back to, hey, 6 months ago you had a file with that same name, or something like that, right? Differ-Iris is another open source platform for collaboration and case notes and things like that. Now, if you want to get really advanced, okay, you get into cassette tapes. I'm just kidding. All right, so to get more advanced, right, like now we're talking about, I got visibility, I can do analysis, and I can scale collection and triage and all that stuff, right? Like I've now got capabilities, a lot of tools and things under my belt. Now the next step is to automate this stuff, right? Now, if I can figure out how to automate it well, I can save myself time on the things that a computer can do for me that I don't need to do, so that I can get to the next thing, right? If the computer can go grab me all the stuff that I want, put it in the place that I want it to be in, now I can start the analysis. Now I'm an hour ahead of where I would have been on schedule, right? And then, of course, memory forensics, and then creating your own lab to do all this stuff. This is probably not as good as many of the commercial applications out there, but it's phenomenal for a free tool for for automating all of the sort of use cases of incident response. Man, I'm super blanking on SOAR. Okay, there you go. So this is a free and open source tool for implementing SOAR. Okay, if you're not familiar with that, security, orchestration, automation, and response. So in other words, bringing in a bunch of different areas of your logs and alert correlations and things like that into automation, playbooking. What do I do about that, right? If this thing pops, I want to go get a triage system, I can automate a lot of that stuff. Or go get an event log, or go get a very specific event, so for example, something pops in, like a weird network alert, and I go say, hey, go look for outlook.exe, spawning that, Internet Explorer, whatever, I can playbook things to go look for very specific things that'll help me to figure out, oh yeah, this is definitely something I'm super concerned about. Here's a great video for, why you would do that, how you would do that, using Shuffler. memprocfs is a phenomenal open source tool for breaking down memory images and putting them into essentially a virtual file system. So extracting a bunch of memory artifacts out for analysis. Volatility is a more manual way to do that. So memprocfs and volatility do the same thing. Volatility has you run the plugins yourself. memprocfs does everything for you. There's reasons why you might look to both. And then there's a great talk from last year's CactusCon, actually. CactusCon 11, called Scaling Incident Response with Live Memory Analysis, all right? So that's, again, every one of these things is a link to either a resource or a video. This full video is out on YouTube, as will this one here. And then the last things here are Lima Charlie is a commercial tool, okay? It's a commercial EDR, but anybody can go sign up to get 2 free instances of Lima Charlie. It will blow your mind, okay? It's basically security operations infrastructure in a cloud service essentially, right? A lot of the things that we're talking about doing, this just put in Lima Charlie and it's done, okay? So again, a great way to play with it because you can get 2 free agents. Eric Capuano, again, great friend of mine, has a phenomenal blog with a very, very detailed walkthrough, leveraging Lima Charlie, in fact, and some of the other tools that we talked about to set up the detailed walkthrough and setting up a lab, actually implementing a basic attack, and then doing some IR and forensics on that, the whole gambit of everything, right? I could have literally just got up, gave you this resource, or we could have walked through it, and I could have read some stuff to you, and it would have been as good as this talk. Not as funny, but as helpful. Kidding. And then I forget why. Oh yeah, okay. So also make sure that you're mixing with some of the organizations and the resources out there, keeping yourself kind of up to date. Darknet Diaries. If you're not familiar with this, you will love Darknet Diaries. All stories about attacks, phenomenal dramatized stories, very, very informational. Also, Simply Cyber. Gerald Auger is a guy who does a lot of work with people who are getting into incident response, or just getting into security, actually, period. And then Zach Allen has a great blog on detection engineering. Detection Challenging Paradigms is a great podcast. Thursday Defensive was mentioned yesterday in another talk. A great webcast that happens every Thursday. And then Lima Charlie has also Defender Fridays. Again, every one of these things has a link on cyberdonkey.net if you're interested in checking those out. That's it. So appreciate it. Thank you for not letting me end super early like a nut job. Appreciate you guys. Cool. I think we have a few minutes for questions, right? Or are we? Do we have a few minutes for questions, or is it? Okay, I'm good, unless anybody has a question. Wait, and I can stand off to the side too, and we can. Okay.
How does Lima Charlie compare to CrowdStrike?
How does Lima Charlie compare? Well, Lima Charlie and CrowdStrike are different. One of them is more for, again, a whole security operations infrastructure, EDR agent. The other one is more of an EDR agent that's AV and all of those things, like proactively blocking stuff. You could do that with Lima Charlie. It's just more on you. CrowdStrike's kind of more packaged. Yeah.
What one would you recommend for someone who is just starting out in this field, like someone who is a novice, or not really novice, beginner?
What's something I would recommend?
Like what service / application do you recommend the most for
You mean for learning or for like actually? Oh man, I mean any of the things that I threw up here, I would just like dive into it but Eric's blog, that one that I mentioned, back here, that's probably the best thing to start off with, and then like listening to like Darknet Diaries and just staying motivated. Yeah.
Thoughts or opinions or preferences for incident response on non-Windows systems?
Oh man, thoughts on non-Windows IR. Yes. Okay. So one, really quickly, Linux and Mac are out there. Okay, they're like I don't even know 1% of the things that you're ever going to deal with. So there's, unfortunately, because of that, there's a lot less resources, knowledge, and training, and so on and so forth. But it's becoming more popular. So like, I would say that I would dominate the Windows area first, and then move into those cases because it's easier to get a job. Let's say, for example, when you have Windows skills, and then you can be more valuable when you add Linux and Mac skills to it. Unless you work at like Apple, then right? Like, then you need to know Mac. All right, cool. I'll hang around in case anybody has any questions. But hey, guys, I appreciate you all so much. Have a good one.